Welcome to PCN In Depth. We begin a new format this month by taking a look inside each of the towns we serve. We want to bring the community closer to town projects and departments. We begin with Duxbury. Duxbury has the earliest town meetings in our region, so we decided to begin looking at community preservation funding requests coming to town meeting this month. There are also 3 houses or homesteads that are in need of CPC funding, as well as a landmark cemetery. The Mayflower Cemetery in Duxbury is one of the oldest maintained cemetery systems in the country. Considered one of the jewels of this historic town, it's a source of significant historic value and pride for the town residents, as well as a possible final resting place for some folks. Over the years, the fencing that surrounds the cemetery has been exposed to the elements, and it's in need of restoration. CPC funding will help to restore portions of the iron fence that have been damaged or eroded. If restoration of the damaged sections of the fence does not occur, permanent damage and even loss of this fence is inevitable. 3 other historic sites in Duxbury, which include the Alden House, the Bradford House, and the Miles Standish House site, are all seeking CPC funding. We'll take a look at these, starting with the Alden House, and then after the video, we'll come back and interview Holly Morris of the CPC.
The Alden House Historic Site is looking for support for Article 28 for a structural assessment to identify some of the ventilation and chimney issues that are plaguing the structure. We have identified a number of problems in the house with ventilation and the chimney, and so this assessment is going to identify the actual problems and help us reverse the course and try and preserve this house for the long term. The house itself has a number of issues, namely in the basement there's ventilation concerns. Older houses were not built to be closed structures like we have today. They were meant to have air flowing through them. So now when we close them in, we're also closing the air in, and that's creating a lot of mold issues and concerns. High relative humidity levels that leads to the deterioration of not only the house itself, but also the objects that are contained within them. In addition to the ventilation concerns, it's mounted by the fact that we have a deteriorating chimney. Over time, 300 years, this chimney has taken a beating through the weather. And we've tried to address it on a number of occasions, never successfully, and so this assessment will hopefully be the final step in really addressing that issue once and for all. What's important about this work is once it's completed, we will then be able to take this report and actually seek out further funding sources. So once they've identified work that needs to be done, this will serve as the basis and the foundation for securing funding for all future projects related to the assessment.
The Duxbury Rural and Historical Society is applying to the CPA for $23,900. This represents 50% of the funding necessary to accomplish an architectural assessment of the Bradford House Museum, which is located at 931 Tremont Street in Duxbury. The Bradford House has no heating, electricity, or plumbing, which makes it very difficult for us to use it during large parts of the year. Our current season is about 2 months during the summer, and even during that season it's often very hot and difficult for visitors. So one of our goals is to expand our season to between 6 to 9 months. The architectural assessment will be evaluating the fact that there is no plumbing, electricity, or heating in the building. They're going to be evaluating whether the lack of those systems has a detrimental effect on the building and whether the addition of some minor changes in those areas might help to improve the condition of the building. The house is architecturally significant because it's a rare example of an unadulterated middle-class house of the period. It was built in 1808. It still boasts its original framework. It's on its original foundation, original doors, windows. It still has its original stair railings, and in fact, preliminary paint analysis shows that some of the paint in the building is original as well. So architecturally very significant. The architectural assessment is the first step in a much larger project. The DRHS is embarking on a multi-year project to conduct the structural repairs for the house, but to also reinterpret the exhibit, to challenge the museum to be something quite enticing and exciting for the community of Duxbury.
We're at 0 Mayflower Avenue in Duxbury, Mass. at the Miles Standish homestead site, the cellar hole of Miles Standish's house. It built probably in 16 1627 or 1628. Miles Standish got a land grant here in 1627, so he's able to move over from Plymouth to this site, which is spectacular. It's on a bluff overlooking the harbor, looks across at Plymouth. It was a fairly big house. There's no house there now, it's just a cellar hole. They've done an excavation here in the 1850s of the earliest colonial excavation, archaeological excavation in the whole country. We are looking for funds to put this site on the list of National Register of Historic Places. There are 11 of them in Duxbury now, and the Miles Standish cellar hole has been homestead site has been overlooked for years. And someone asked me about this 5 years ago, and I'm finally getting around to doing this for them. If we get the CPA funds, we're going to open the site up, make parking better, and actually we'll have the site redug for an archaeological excavation with current technology.
We're here in studio with Holly Morris from the Duxbury CPC. Welcome, Holly.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for being here.
I appreciate it.
Can you explain a little bit about what you do at the CPC and your positions in Duxbury?
Sure. I am the chairman of the Community Preservation Committee for the town of Duxbury, and I also serve on the Conservation Commission as a commissioner.
Okay. Now the CPC, could you explain, because I'm rather not versed in this, what does the CPC do overall? What's the definition of a CPC?
Sure. The Community Preservation Act was designed to allow communities to protect open space, to develop affordable housing, and also to preserve and restore historic properties or structures. It can also be used for recreation, but that's not mandated by the Act.
Okay. So the CPC in Duxbury, what are your main objectives there?
Well, Duxbury has historically been very, very concerned about development pressure because it's a very desirable town. Mm-hmm. It's very concerned about whether development is going to add more pressures onto our water supply, our cultural and historic resources, and our natural resources. And so back in 2000, there was a land acquisition task force that was charged by, they were responsible for determining the best way to acquire land in town, mm-hmm. and their recommendation was to adopt the Community Preservation Act.
Okay.
And we did do that. The CPA has two sources of funding. One is from surcharges within the town, and we elected the full 3% back in 2002.
No, 3% of?
It's 3% of our real estate taxes.
Okay. Automatically goes to the CPC.
It goes into that account. It doesn't go to the CPC. It's an account that the CPC oversees,
okay.
But we don't really manage. We manage that account, but we can't expend any of the money without town meeting approval.
Okay. So let me just ask you, when you said, is there any problem with not having development which would bring you more taxes, and yet you want to preserve so that there's no growth on that land? Does that ever come up?
Absolutely. It's the key is to balance that situation. You certainly want the revenue stream, but on the other hand, you want to make sure that you have a good supply of resources such as groundwater, or you want to have open space. Right. And what the CPC does is that we get a number of proposals for open space protection, and we're trying to protect as much land as we can. The task force recommended that we take 3 out of every 10 acres of remaining open space and protect it in perpetuity. And
how do you define open space? Like as it is right now?
Open space is open land. It could be a water body.
Who's it owned by?
Generally individuals.
Okay. It's not town land, because town land is already...
town land is already... town land may be protected, but not all town land is.
Okay. So it's owned by individuals, mm-hmm. and a certain percentage of this every year you want to buy.
We try.
Okay. Now, how does that process work? Do you identify the area and then go to the owner?
Occasionally. Sometimes the owners come to us. We're very fortunate that there's a land group in town that identifies important pieces of land, and also Joe Grady, who is our conservation administrator. He does a fine job of communicating with landowners to see if they have any interest in selling their property to the town.
Okay.
And protecting that land, again, in perpetuity.
And you said you have X amount every year that is presented to you.
We never know.
Okay.
It's not something that happens every year. This year we happen to have a tremendous opportunity, but it takes time.
Okay.
You have to have a willing seller.
Okay, so let's just, before we talk about what you're looking for this year, let's talk a little bit about your revenue. How you said it's 3% of the taxes. How much? I think you brought a graphic that we could put up.
We did. There is a graphic on our CPA revenue.
Okay, so explain to what this graphic means.
Sure. Back in 2002, Duxbury adopted the full 3% surcharge. You can't go any higher than that, but we went the full boat.
Okay.
And at that time, there's another revenue stream, and that is the state matching funds.
Okay.
And those monies are derived from the Registry of Deeds. Every time there's a real estate transaction, money goes into that account from a fee.
Okay.
And those monies then get dispersed every year to communities that have adopted CPA. So since we had adopted the full 3%, we were getting 100% match for
nice
5
match.
years.
Sure.
It was tremendous,
Yeah,
and we put it to work right away.
Yep. So in 2013, you got a lot of money.
Got a
from
lot
the
of
state,
money,
and you had a lot of money in the bank.
Yes.
Okay. Where do you sit right now?
Right now, well, what has happened though? If you look at the graph, you'll see that there's a decline in the revenue stream, and the reason for that is back in 2013, the voters decided to reduce the surcharge from 3% down to 1%, and they adopted a $100,000 exemption. This dramatically reduced our revenue stream by more than 2/3, and that's why you see the decline in the chart. And also the state matching funds will decline because it's based upon how much money we bring in from our own town.
Okay. So where do you sit right now? I mean, you're in good shape as far as your bank balance?
Very good shape. We have in our undesignated fund over $2.7 million.
Wow.
And then for each of the three purposes that we have, which is open space, we will have about $800,000. The historical account has roughly around $300,000. The affordable housing account also has around $300,000.
Oh, so in this big general fund, you have sub-funds?
We do.
Okay, and that's part of the act, you have to have these sub-funds?
Yes.
Okay. So for the big open space, the land that you want to purchase, you have a lot of money to purchase it.
We do.
And what is on the agenda for you for this year as far as what you want to purchase?
This year we have this tremendous opportunity to acquire the Maryland, which is 267 acres of cranberry farms. The goal here is to maintain cranberry farming, which we have done historically in Duxbury. It's very, very important. We've been doing this since the 1970s. Yeah. We then develop management agreements with cranberry growers, and they come in and manage at no expense to the town. It's just a way of continuing this type of agriculture in the community.
Sure. So the Maryland bogs, as they're known now, all these acres, are they currently used?
Many of the bogs are, and some of them have gone fallow, and we will continue to allow those to go fallow because they're near drinking wells.
Okay.
But the bogs that are currently under production, we hope that those will continue to remain in production.
Okay. And the family that owns the bogs, they want you to continue them as bogs.
Absolutely.
And they want the CPC to buy the land.
Yes.
Okay. So, what's the problem? You have the money to buy the land. You have the money to buy it.
We do have the money to buy it. The key is that people have to get out to town meeting and they have to exercise their right to vote. And in order to acquire land in Duxbury, you have to have at least a 2/3 vote.
Even though you have the money and even though you were set up to do this? Okay.
The voters make the final decision, all CPA projects. And And I'm strongly encouraging people to come out there and have their voices heard.
Have their voices. Okay, so why would someone not want you to purchase this parcel of land? What would be an objection?
I think, just because there are taxpayers out there that are certainly concerned about any expenditures that we make.
Yeah.
You always hear, some dissent on almost every project.
Sure.
Some people that don't care for CPA. But it has proven to be a tremendous asset to our town.
Sure.
We have essentially expended $19 million in projects over the years since 2002, which is remarkable. But I have to say that at least $9 million of that $19 million has come from state matching funds. And we've also received about $4.8 million in additional revenue from state and federal grants.
Great.
We've had donations from people. We've had people have donated their goods and services and their time.
So you have a strong backing also.
Oh, absolutely. And it's a fabulous program, and I think it really brings the community together.
And for a really good purpose.
Yes, absolutely.
And the fact that it's not going to cost anybody any more money should be kind of a no-brainer. And is there anything else that you're looking at in town meeting for people to vote on besides the Mary Boggs?
There are other projects that I understand that you will be presenting on television as well. We also have the Bay Management Committee is presenting an article where they would like to have signage around key areas in town. This is signage that will describe some of the ecology in the bay, also discuss some of the navigational concerns, where the aquaculture grants are. But it's mostly to educate not only the residents, but also anybody that's visiting the community.
Excellent.
So,
okay. Great. All right, so CPC, you get money from property taxes and matching funds from state.
Yes.
You have a huge bank account right now. You have some land you really want to purchase, and it's really important for the members of the town to come out to town meeting and to vote.
Absolutely.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you very much for asking me. Thank you.
Okay. PCN In Depth also visited the Duxbury Police Station to hear more about upcoming programs. One of the police department's main goals is public safety and knowledge. Each year they provide wonderful programs open to the public and geared to specific ages and specific topics. We stopped in to get an update on programs that will be coming up this spring.
I'm a sergeant here. I work a kind of funky shift. I do admin and I do patrol. I do patrol 2 days a week, and then I do admin, and I'm in charge of the accreditation process that we go through here, which is our policies and procedures and things like that. I also work with the elderly, and I do a senior police academy with them, which consists of anywhere between 10 to probably like 18 of them. We go with a 10-week program. And we take them to the courts, we take them to the prison, they go shooting, they go out in the harbor master boat, they do ride-alongs with us. So I do some things like that. I also do fraud programs with the seniors, and I do that several times a year. And we work with telephone fraud and things, scams and things like that. I do those programs also. I also do self-defense for girls. I run a program for them a couple times a year, and it's basically for females, up age 13 and up, and it's basically a self-defense and awareness program for them. And then our newest program that we're doing in conjunction with the Duxbury Student Union is one for children or young adults, and that's also going to be a safety program with geared more to say like going outside the home, how to get around on the T, things like all different things like they need to know, their awareness, before they go to school, some things they can, be aware of and stuff like that.
During the academic year, as I said, we have pop-in classes where we go into the physical education classes and we talk about drug prevention, talk about good decision making, and we do safe dating practices, we do stranger danger. Throughout the year, we try to interact with all the students in a positive way at many times during the academic year. And during the summer, we run a junior police academy, which is approximately 20 students, where we give them opportunities to interact with different aspects of the criminal justice system, whether it's the courts, the jails, and the law enforcement aspects. Then we run a DARE camp, or the summer drug education program, where we bring approximately 25 to 30 students with other school resource officers, and in conjunction with the Plymouth District Attorney's Office. We have that at Whitman-Hanson High School, and it's a program where it's designed to have good kids from all different communities in Plymouth County interact and learn about drug prevention and learn about making good decisions.
Oscar 18, Duxbury.
We want to, kind of bridge the gap and build positive relationships with everybody in the community. And an excellent way to start that out is to working with the students in Duxbury and in other communities. And we have tight working relationships with other departments as well.
When we meet with the seniors, or when Friend does the programs with the juveniles, that it lets us know that, we're not just there to get them in trouble and things like that. This is also what else we can help with. And it gives they get to meet us in not so stressful times.
We do many different safety initiatives throughout the year, stranger danger, anti-bullying, and we're, it's an as-needed basis. I maintain an office at the high school where we can work closely with the administrators and the faculty at all of the schools to provide a safe environment at the school as well as in the community.
The Senior Police Academy, half them are 50 years old, which is, I don't count as senior, so it works out good. We get a whole group of people there.
Another aspect of the police department is the Criminal Investigation Bureau and its detective unit. This state-of-the-art crime lab was part of the new construction of the whole facility back in 2013. This unit has extensive training in collection, identification, and classification of fingerprints, as well as footprints, tire impressions, and tool marks. PCN In-Depth was able to get a tour of the lab and learn more about its capabilities in solving crimes.
Hi, my name is Officer Andrew Homestead with the Duxbury Police Department. I'm also assigned to the Identification Unit, which does all of our crime scene stuff. Right here we have a bunch of different options that we have for investigating crime scenes. We start with our powder kit, which helps to lift fingerprints. We have the standard black powder that you see on TV, that we also have the fluorescent fingerprint powder, which with that, we use a forensic blue light, and it lights up the fingerprints. Amongst that, we have all the fingerprint powder brushes and then different lifters, and which results in a couple different examples right here as far as prints lifted. So you can lift fingerprints with this gel. You can lift it off of tape. And then what it turns out to be is, after you take pictures of it, we can blow it up and then work with the Plymouth County Sheriff's Department and Paul Souza down there, and he does comparisons. So as you can see here, it doesn't look like much, but this is actually a palm print from a window. And this is the original palm print, and then it's compared with subject's palm print from a palm print card, and you can see all the different points of identification as they match up. The same with fingerprints. This was a stolen TV, and we didn't have a suspect, so the fingerprints were photographed on the TV and then enhanced with a computer system, and then compared to the fingerprint card from the suspect, and then it was later made identification, and then subsequently an arrest after that. So we have a lot of different options. You don't get fingerprints in every case, but we do the best we can based upon the surfaces and the weather conditions and everything like that. The other things we look for as far as physical evidence is footprints. So as you can see here, we use a substance called dental stone, and we can actually pour that into mud or dirt or anything and lift the footprint, which might be difficult to see with the camera, but there's actually whole footprint right here. Same with tire tracks. So if there's a hit and run, you can pour this into a section of tire tracks and use that for a comparison, which once again is done out at the crime lab at the Plymouth County Sheriff's Department. When you get fingerprints, they can appear on a bunch of different surfaces, from wood surfaces to metal surfaces, and inside of a car. You have to use different methods for each one of these surfaces. So right here we have a piece of paper, which clearly you can't see anything on, but I did put some fingerprints on there. This type of surface, we're going to use a magnetic fluorescent fingerprint powder, which adheres to the oils in your skin that are on there. And it's just a matter of rubbing it over the surface area, and then you'll see the fingerprints appear. With this one, you can clearly see there's a whole handprint on here. And you can use this in instances where maybe there's a robbery and a note pass. With the news station, since we've moved here, we've completely increased our capabilities. We never had a crime lab like this where we can process all of our evidence. There's evidence storage facilities in either section here in this room, which is our processing room, but we also have the ability to use this fume hood here. The fume hood's great because what we can do is we use this, it's essentially a fish tank, and what we'll do is we'll put an item in there and put super glue into that tank, and what it does is the super glue adheres to the fingerprints and makes the fingerprints permanent so that we can continuously dust them and try again if we don't get a good lift in the first try. It also helps with evidence in court because the fingerprint is always going to be on the object. So the fume hood, what that does is it allows us to use the super glue inside and not have to worry about all those fumes and vapors going throughout the station. So it goes into here, it's filtered, and released through a vent in the roof.
Thanks for watching PCN In Depth. We hope you have a better understanding of departments and trending subjects within the town. Replay times of this episode are found at our website, PACTV.org. We will be back again with a spotlight on